Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Chase Commercial Term Lending and New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Capital One Bank, the Wyckoff Group, Genova Burns, Giantomasi Webster, Greenberg Traurig. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley & Lardner, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, HAP Investment Developers, Herrick Feinstein, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, John Katsimides, Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey-Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, MHP Real Estate Services, People's United Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, Urban American, and These Friends.
So what is a 4-minute ride from Midtown Manhattan? What is a place that has 7 subway lines, 8 many buses, and has this magnitude of rental apartments, some condo apartments, hotels, retail? It's Long Island City. It's a mecca that has grown and it's come of age. It's a market that is really doing well. So today I've assembled a group of individuals to provide this insight on what's happening in this space called LIC. My guests include John Adams, who is the first Senior Vice President for Mortgage Originations at New York Community Bank, the man who's lending in Long Island City. Liz Lusskin, who is the President of the Long Island City Partnership. David Brause, who has a couple of titles. One is the President of Brause Realty. The other one is his real job. He is the President of the Long Island City Business Improvement District. And last but not least, the man who's been in Long Island City since 1979, when he was probably 3 years of age, Alan Suna, who is the CEO of Silvercup Studios and managing member of Silvercup Properties. So your dad was up in the Bronx, and he had an air conditioning factory, and he was ducks, and he found this site, this bread company, Silvercup Bread. So you went into Long Island City in 1979, and as we were talking before the show, Long Island City was a place with factories, with sweatshops, with industry. You started the studio over there, but you've been building, and you're building a new condo. A condo in Long Island City. Condos are growing. People want it, and you're one of the few. Talk to me about what you see happening today in Long Island City.
Well, Long Island City, everything is happening. It's rental housing. It's ownership housing. It is manufacturing. It is office space. It is new tech. It is tech stuff that you can't even begin to imagine. It is artisanal foods. It is, you really used the right word before, Mike, and I'm so pleased. Use the word mecca. And mecca is a place that people have to go to. Long Island City is a place that people have to go to now. It really has everything that you need to live, to work, and to play.
You know, when people hear about Long Island City, sometimes they look at Long Island City, You know, they know about the properties at TF Cornerstone, which is finishing their 6th and final building over there. They see the property that's being worked with Related Monadnock and Hunters Point North. They know about the museums, they know about other things, but they think of residential housing, mostly rental, now some condominiums over there. What's happening with regard to the commercial? As Alan was saying before, with regard to the office space, because Long Island City, John recently did financing, but how do you see it in the partnership with the office space today?
Well, it's interesting. We had some new construction with Gotham 2, which is on Queens Plaza, enormous building that Department of Health is in. We have the JetBlue building, the Brauses did, that has JetBlue, MetLife, Publicis, a few others. There isn't new construction happening, but there's great reuse happening of major industrial properties like the Fauci building, the factory building, the Standard Motors building, which you were involved in, the Apple building, the Center building, which are now being fixed up to have a spectrum from light industrial to creative commercial in there. And there's a lot of other buildings steps down from there where people are buying them now not to convert them to residential, but to actually, they believe they can make money with them with commercial.
Now, as a banker, I mean, when you went to committee and mortgage committee to get this approved, New York Community Bank has a really astute mortgage committee who understands the market, and many of them being Queens builders or involved with the Queens. They remember, you know, they have memories going back to before it was a true mecca. How was it perceived when you went to committee to make a loan on a office building? Because this is a building that RXR is not changing the use. They're not converting it to like the paper factory to a hotel or to anything else. How did they look at it and how underwriting this type of deal?
Well, knowing what Long Island City has become from where it was, it's a place now people living and working. So there's a demand for the space, and especially like the RXR building. Rents were considerably below market, and with the revitalization and business moving into the area and staying in the area, it made perfect sense because vacancy levels now are tolerable. They're market, they're not extremely high, and it made it all more economical for us to make that type of decision to get into that market with a sponsor who we obviously know, who does a great job. And knowing that the absorption of that space is happening and vacancies are, like I said, low, it just was a good decision for us knowing that rents are on their way up.
Now, with regard to that, you have David, who took over, who owns this building for 34 years, your family, where you put MetLife originally, now JetBlue and MetLife and Publicis and some other companies. You also own office buildings in Manhattan. What's the cost, the tenant differential in paying rent for a Long Island City office building,
Sure.
as compared to a Midtown Manhattan building?
Right, so we own buildings in both Midtown and
that's why I
and
brought
Long
up
Island
the
City.
question.
The top of the market for an existing office building is really where JetBlue is, and that's about $40 a foot. And the top of the market in Manhattan is getting to $200 a foot. Now it's not quite apples to apples.
Right, but if we compare the building over there, the $40, there's space in Long Island City. There's still office space probably available, probably at the $28 for the lowest level of it.
Right, so the nice thing that Standard Motors building represents is that you don't have to convert these loft buildings into residential anymore to make them make sense. If they're getting $30 a foot, which is probably the newest leases signing these days, and they're taking off of a rent roll that's probably averaging $22 a foot.
Or even $18 a foot in something.
That's a huge increase in NOI every year, so that justifies the prices that people are paying and the mortgages that banks are lending. And at a $30 rent with a great Class A installation, an old building, but that's kind of what people want. The tech companies want loft space with exposed ceiling, exposed wiring and ductwork and sprinkler and all the guts hanging out of the building. That's cool and funky and creative space. That's great. That kind of space in Manhattan is that's Google, right? That's meatpacking. That's $80 a foot. So that's a huge discount. That's more than half off. So that's always been why people have been coming to Long Island City. Back to Alan's point, why are people coming to Long Island City now? Well, it might not necessarily have to be this huge discount. Now people want to be there because it's hip, it's cool, it's Williamsburg with a much better address in terms of the public transit options to get back and forth to Midtown.
Now, when we bring up Williamsburg, one of the things that has happened in certain spots of Williamsburg is they are building a Whole Foods. They're building certain different retail. That retail hasn't really come yet to Long Island City.
It's about to. Alan's building a condo. We're building 270 units of rental. Rockrose is building about 2,500 square units of rental. They are putting in the base of LIC a brand new supermarket. There are restaurants opening every day, huge supermarket. All of the amenities are now coming. Why? Because finally we've hit that straw that broke the camel's back. We have enough rental and enough residences in Long Island City and office workers and hotel rooms that are all bringing people to Long Island City on a 24/7 basis.
Yeah, when
Mike, in the pipeline right now, 8,000 new units in Long Island City. In the pipeline, happening. Just to put a number on it for you.
And
It's a few people.
our own homegrown version of Whole Foods food cellar, they're over by the waterfront. They're going into LIC. So we may not have that name, but we do have large,
you have a similarity.
high-end-
It's like Gourmet Garage.
Right.
Right.
It's similar. It doesn't matter. When you hear 8,000 units, and besides the standard motor building, you did the Valiotis property over there. You've done a number of rentals. You did a lot of conversions. I remember being at some of those sites over there,
Yep.
former factories, industrial. How do you look at that? That's a large number because it's not Long Island City, but you made some construction loans in Astoria, which is right next door to Long Island City.
My first question is, where are they all coming from? All these people to absorb them, but they are. I mean, it's proven the fact that once buildings get up and get CO'd or TCO'd, they're rented right up. And the rents have increased to the point where it makes sense to build because the demand is there.
I mean, Alma's property, which you financed, he rented that building, which was about 130 units, in less than 3.5 months, without a broker, and it's totally different. It's an 8-story building. It's not a luxury building. There are no amenities. There's no doorman. It's a different type of property as compared. But here's an interesting phenomena. We had the Citibank building probably built in the early 80s.
Yep.
Nothing came over there for years. And I still remember when the Silvermans bought the property, the Eagle Electric building.
From the Ludwigs.
And people were thinking of that. What has made the change? What has been the cause of why all this property? Because you always had the great subways in Long Island City. Where Citibank was, to Midtown, it was the greatest ride. The E train, the F train, all the
Wanna know
trains. Why?
Why were these changes happening at the times that they did? It's called the economy. Right after the Citibank building was built, and they had all kinds of grand plans. It's when the Alleghenians went in and bought all that other land around Court Square for very low numbers. You had a huge change in the economy. Interest rates were like in the high teens, low 20s. Nobody could afford to build. New York was not
But that was
what it is
30
today.
years ago. But
No. But you asked the question. You started back in the 80s, and then what has happened now, in the simplest way, which I'm sure you will like the way I will explain this one, knowing you have compression in Manhattan. You have so much stuff in Manhattan that people can't afford Manhattan anymore. So what are they doing? They're moving out to not just Long Island City, but they're moving out to other parts of New York City. And what I said in the green room before we came in, the most beautiful thing for me that I see is that New York is once again becoming a 5-borough, live-work city that is utilizing all of its transportation opportunities, all of its waterfront opportunities, and the economy is pushing it. And Rebney has statistics on this, so I'm not the right one to ask, but the amount of new people moving into New York, is greater than the available housing supply. So that is why places, Long Island City, Williamsburg, even the Bronx, and other parts of Queens are all becoming, in a certain sense, richer as a result of having more people living there.
when you discussed before the hospitality, and we'll get to hospitality, and I'll ask Liz a question. Silvercup Studio is operating how many days a week today?
7.
7 days a week. How many hours?
Well, it's whatever the clients want.
On the average, 16 hours a day?
Starting, it's 6:30 in the morning, ending around anywhere from 10 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the morning.
So we're 16 to 18 hour. Many of these people are coming to New York City. How many of these people would you say are utilizing the 20,000 plus rooms that have been developed over the last couple of years in Long Island City?
What a great question. You ready? Very few. And you know why? Because the people that are working in our facility choose to live here. And do we have people that work at our facility that live in Long Island City and Astoria? Absolutely.
What about the people from the theatrical world, the actors and the actresses? Are they staying in Long Island City, or are they commuting back into Manhattan?
Oh, I'm going to have fun. What part of my last answer didn't you understand?
I understood.
They're all, you know,
I'm talking about the people who travel in for a specific movie or something like that. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the people, the regular workers.
No, but they will live in Manhattan, and because they're the ones earning huge dollars, and can live in expensive apartments in Tribeca, or wherever they choose to live. I mean, you know, Tina Fey, who's done incredibly well since you know, we did 30 Rock some years ago and what have you. She lives on the Upper West Side, next door to my daughter.
Now, do we call Kaufman Astoria? That's in Astoria, as opposed to Long Island City.
Our banners are outside their studio. It proudly says Long Island
We
City.
keep them as our own. They're Long Island City as well. But ask Liz what percentage of the 1,300 JetBlue employees live in Long Island City. And they just moved into the building about 5 years ago.
30%. And when you talk about actors, the woman who just won Best Actress playing Carole King, she lives up in the northern part of Long Island City, Astoria. If you're getting on the subway, you see people, the makeup artists getting on the subway, and we keep having companies that move out who service both the studios and Broadway, and they realized that they should have moved out a long time ago, because most of the people who work for them or they need to, you know, to audition and so on, they're all out there anyway already. It's been the sort of affordable working person's borough for a long time, kind of under the radar, not with this big aura around it, but this is where everybody is.
One of the New York community banks is Queens County Savings Bank. Yep. They've been around close to 150 years.
1859.
So I'm very close. So 155 years. So they've been there, and there's a lot of mecca in Queens. How much have you, as a banker, seen of new financings and in the Long Island City Astoria neighborhood?
We see a lot of requests for development of new projects, and you know, historically we've never been a big developing lender. Not seeing a heck of a lot of financing requests for, I guess, for a portfolio loan. I think a lot of these newer buildings coming online are probably going more agency financing, locking up for longer terms, insurance companies. So I'm not I thought we would see more, being that is primarily what our claim to fame is multifamily. But not, I would have thought we would have seen more requests for permanent type financing.
Here's a question for anyone who wants to try to answer it. Some of the, you know, certain people, townhouses have become big again, or, you know, brownstones. Has there been a resurrection? I mean, I know that they've tried to build some in Williamsburg and other places. Has there been a resurrection of the 5-story townhouse or the 4-story townhouse in the Long Island City, you know, on some of these avenues?
I know one small development, which is townhouse type thing, large family units, okay, $1,100 a square foot.
And
new construction.
The existing stock on the side streets, there's houses from 100 years ago, from mid-20th century. The prices on those are going way up. And there is one little area of beautiful old brownstones, you know, and the prices on those are going up. So there's a value in those, but they're not being newly constructed.
I was saying in the green room before that yesterday an investment sales broker came to me, and he told me, he said that all of a sudden, even though this has not happened overnight, but in the last 6 months, the price differential for developable land for residential in Long Island City has skyrocketed. I mean, gone up by at least 30, 40%, much higher than even Manhattan. Do you see this? I mean, as owners, as people trying to buy property.
Yep.
Sure. A couple of years ago, to break $100 a foot was a major feat, and then it was 150. How could you possibly make it make sense at 150? And then these guys came along and started showing people that you could build condos, and boy, at $1,000 a foot, now you can pay $225 to $250 a foot and still make money on a condo. Now all of a sudden, everybody's starting to look at condos.
But when we look at a condo, and I think that's a great story on the condos. My office is on 50th and 3rd. I every day pass 2 condominiums that are being built. One is on the corner of 50th and 2nd, and one is on 51st and 2nd. And these 2 condos are fine. They're condos. Nothing great. They're not 157 West 57th Street. There's nothing. They will be nice residents. But the price for that condo unit is starting at $2,500 a foot. Mm-hmm. A condo in Long Island City, the first development you did a couple years ago, how much was the condo prices per foot?
Well, we averaged at that time, I guess the last one closed about 2 years ago, but probably averaged $725, $750. And now those same units are reselling
At
$1,000 a foot.
David is building a market rate rental. One of the problems that we have when you're building are real estate taxes in New York City. Real estate taxes are expensive. How can someone who's buying land today, who doesn't have a foundation in the ground, or they don't have a 421A, or they are not going to get into the ground by next summer completed, how can they build an effective?
It's a big issue. Construction costs, which we haven't really talked about, have gone through the roof. So as land has gone up, so has construction gone up. Non-union, union, mostly out there as non-union, it almost doubled in the last couple of years. So I don't think it makes sense if you're paying $200 a foot and you're paying real estate taxes, which could be 30 to 40% of your NOI. That doesn't make sense anymore based upon where the rents are now. If the rents accelerate beyond where the construction costs are accelerating, maybe, but I think the land rush is pushing people more to condo. Maybe hotel development, but I think condos are starting to make more sense.
Let's talk about the hotel development, because there's been an excessive amount of hotels being built in a specific area.
It's a pejorative term.
There are enough sweet hotels to a situation. Do you see another 10 hotels being built? I mean,
There's 7 or 8 in the ground, that are in various stages of development. There's about 24 that are open. There was a recent study that said we have a quarter of the hotel rooms in the city, in Long Island City. And you can talk about how it all started and going into manufacturing zones, but the fact of the matter is that at that volume, they represent an asset for the neighborhood, because you're bringing in more people to go to the museums, more people to go to restaurants, more people populating the area. And when you talk to the hoteliers, who are doing quite well in terms of occupancy, most of the travel is business related, either to businesses in the area like JetBlue and so on. Also businesses in Midtown, it's a hop, skip, and a jump, and most of the hotels are right along one of the subway lines. And then there's the so-called orbits travelers, right? I want to be 2 miles from Times Square, and it's $100 less.
I believe the Orbitz travelers, one Sunday, I believe it was Palm Sunday, that I took the walk over the bridge. It was the Orbitz travelers, because I was the only one speaking English.
That's true.
Yeah, it's
Did you read
fun.
the
They're
article
from
about
all
the
over the
Chinese?
world.
The Chinese are going to send 100 million people to New York City as tourists over the next couple of years. And the big article was, they're all staying near Newark Airport at $59 a night, and then they're taking a bus in, and they're taking a bus out, and they're up at the crack of dawn. It's great for the hotel. It's great for them. They should be coming to JFK instead of Newark, and they should be coming to Long Island City and spending $121 a night and hanging out in New York City.
Unfortunately, they can't go to
system.
Flushing because there's not enough room for any more hotels in Flushing. But if they were, they could fill every one of the rooms in Flushing because of the number of
You've got,
foreign
you've
tourists.
got 52 million people coming to New York City on an annual
55.
basis. 55, sorry.
And also
there's plenty of room for them.
The product mix in Long Island City, you have everything from bargain to real boutique. And so it's interesting, you're getting like the Paper Factory, the Loft, and other brands, the Z Hotel. These are gorgeous hotels, and people are staying there and having an experience, not just a room. And you want to pull those people out into the neighborhood more and more and get them, again, to be part of the demand, that critical level of demand that we need to sort of fill in all of the amenities that the neighborhood needs, whether you're working there or living there.
I think one of the other things which is gonna help Long Island City, and it doesn't really need the help, is when Roosevelt Island with Cornell opens up, the Cornell Technion, there's going to be a dire need for certain office space because these incubator companies, there's going to be a need for housing for these people because there's limited housing. Even though they're planning to build some housing, they can only build one or two residential buildings.
It's de minimis.
The amount of space over there, and the fact that Roosevelt Island only has one subway. You have the F train and you have the tram. The capability, I think, the availability of what Long Island City, Hunters Point, and the fact that Astoria, all of that is going to increase and give availability.
You're going to take the F train. You're not going to take the tramway, right? And just in terms of public transit options. You're going to take the F train. So you can either go east or west. If you go west, pretty expensive. If you go east, bam, you're in the middle of Long Island City, right on Queens Plaza. It's an incredible opportunity for Long Island City to grow. We're meeting with the Cornell Tech people on a regular basis to try to figure out how to expand our offerings to them for student housing, for professor housing, for professors that are doing part-time work there.
I remember, I think it was Eddie Minskoff who bought 3030 Northern Boulevard a number of years ago, and he was talking about student housing. Has student housing come yet to Long Island City?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No,
It's
I
not
mean,
there
you
yet.
know, I think the interesting thing about Long Island City is we don't really have a vacancy issue. You know, so there aren't these sort of massive properties that are looking for a new use. And the kind of space that we have outside of the residential, which is flexible, affordable, industrial space, is highly attractive to a lot of different kinds of uses. So it isn't sitting there waiting, you know, for student housing or so on, and hopefully it will still be there when the new companies that Cornell is spinning off is doing. But it's all within the character of what's going on in Long Island City today. So you have new tech companies, you have old companies that use tech, you have artists in there, you have creative companies, you have all kinds of things honeycombed into this great space that people like. The issue is the affordability over time. Can you keep that mix of uses?
Let me make an observation for you. If you look at this new economy that we're in, not that we understand it entirely, but we kind of have a feel for where it's going. It's creative life. And if you look at that kind of new economy and where it exists places outside of New York City, if you look at Silicon Valley and other places like that, they're not in old buildings with exposed this and that. They're in new buildings. They're in buildings that are not so dissimilar from the Bloomberg building in Midtown Manhattan. What's going to happen, my prediction, and go back in 5 years and take a look and see if I'm right, my prediction is that there's still enormous opportunity in Long Island City to build the new buildings that these growing companies are going to need to give them specifically what they're looking for, with the vibe of what they're looking for, with the density of what they're looking for. Okay, that doesn't even exist in Long Island City yet.
That need to be satisfied, you have to have the land. The whole question is the availability of developable land left in Long Island City where you can build that building, which perhaps is near Silvercup Studios.
You'll need to have incentives too. The city's going to have to offer something because it's just going to be too costly between taxes.
Yeah, I mean that kind
Cost
of
of
property,
construction.
that kind of property is going to have to rent, you know, in the neighborhood of $50 a foot. But you know what? With the city's help, the state's help, and what have you, I would imagine we can get there.
So as I started the program saying that Long Island City is a mecca, I think we've agreed that there's a lot happening in Long Island City. It's only getting better each and every day. Cornell, Technion's helping, residential's helping, manufacturers helping, studios helping. It's good that we have banks of lending over there. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. My friend John, Liz, David, and of course Alan. And I'll see you next week.